Colorado, come on!
Artemis II astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. Not your typical rock stars to take the stage at Red Rocks Amphitheater. And instead of sharing music, they shared their out-of-this-world mission to the moon.
The first time I saw the moon after the mission was a profound moment.
We were able to head backstage with the crew, the first to go to the moon since 1972, with new technology, but keeping in mind the space pioneers before them.
That worked through Mercury, Gemini, Apollo to send humans to the moon in the first place. What they did during that time frame and the speed at which they did it.
They shared the feelings and views from their 10-day journey.
We were the same distance from the sun the whole time. That's kind of amazing. We traveled all that way, almost 700,000 miles, to go 252,756 miles from Earth, and we were the same distance from the sun.
Being able to see the far side of the moon, something that will never be visible from Earth.
Because what we were able to see on this mission, it just felt so close. Like you could reach out and touch it, like you could explore those canyons, you could hike along those valleys and ridges of the craters.
But also the little moments, aside from the moon, that matter.
So one of my favorite aspects is that we had a bathroom in this that had a door. It was quite nice to be able to shut a door.
With the journey having so many connections to Colorado, there couldn't have been a better spot for it to be hosted.
This is probably the closest looking thing to the moon that there is on the planet, so it just seems fitting. That's not why it was chosen, but hey, it fits. It's like, hey, it's out here in the rocks, just like being on the moon.
This was my childhood home.
27 years.
Memories shredded to pieces, now boarded up, covered with tarps, or sitting in piles on the curb.
A nightmare. Never be the same. As long as I'm living.
David Sokolowski lives across the street from Carla Williamson.
All I heard is boom, wham, bam, wham. And then I started getting rained on. So I came back up after it calmed down, and I knew my neighbor was across the street. So I ended up going over and helping.
The house actually moved 3 feet back and 3 feet off and then slid down into the basement and collapsed on top of me.
David, other neighbors and first responders rescued Carla. 1 week later, their homes are damaged beyond repair. They have no power and are trying to find a way to move forward. Menasha Utilities says 90% of its customers have power back. But where Dave and Carla live and on Doty Island, crews are rebuilding structures to restore power. In Fox Crossing, folks can now safely drink the water since the boil advisory's been lifted. And Menasha police say since Thursday, there have been no additional arrests or citations related to curfew and no incidents related to looting. Neighbors tell me they feel the progress.
The people in the community have been absolutely amazing, amazing.
We have Good Samaritan came over, cleaned up our yard totally. They had 20 people. Other people came by with resources, whatever we needed. Fantastic.
Despite losing her childhood home, Carla started a GoFundMe to raise money for her neighbors to cover their losses too.
$10, $100, I don't care what it is. I don't need the help. I'll be okay. But there are people in this neighborhood that don't have the insurances, don't have the jobs.
Overall, the debate stayed cordial. Candidates kept their focus on the issues and mostly avoided personal attacks. The only consistent jabs came from Mark Lynch, claims the other candidates quickly pushed back on as false. On stage, candidates offered similar answers on cutting the national debt, improving affordability, and passing the SAVE Act to require voter ID. One issue that produced different responses involved a topic long championed by late Senator Lindsey Graham. Should U.S. troops remain in Iran or come home?
It has gone on longer, but the president is doing everything he can. There are military generals now that are saying it's going to really eliminate them. They're going to have to put boots on the ground. I don't think the country wants that right now.
If they build the nuclear missiles, their goal is to come here and kill us. So the more we can fight them over there and prevent it over there, the better for the United States.
And we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Having done that, it's time to bring our men and women home to get them out of harm's way.
Only Congress has the authority to declare war. This decision needs to be made by Congress.
And so no boots on the ground. I'm not a believer in that. My brother served in Iraq and I've lost friends in foreign wars, but we can finish the mission by defanging Iran and making sure they have no capabilities left.
While the debate remained mostly civil, Lynch targeted Fry and Norman over their records in Washington, both men rejecting his claims.
Mr. Fry was obviously for mass amnesty by endorsing Lindsey Graham, and Mr. Norman voted on an Allies Act that brought 8,000 illegal Afghans into our country.
I don't really know what he's talking about with mass amnesty, quite frankly. I supported Lindsey Graham in the first primary because he stood with President Trump.
Again, it's silly season with those who are trying to make issues out of non-existent issues.
Darlene Graham used part of her closing statement to criticize Lynch for repeatedly bringing up her late brother during the debate.
Mr. Lynch mentioned Lindsey Graham multiple times. And I don't know if he's just afraid Lindsey beat him and now his little sister's going to beat him.
Sanford, meanwhile, avoided attacks from his opponents, instead pointing to his record as governor as his case to voters throughout the night.
When I was governor, we saw the first cut to the grocery tax. We saw the first cut to property tax. We saw the largest recurring tax in South Carolina history.
Reporting in Columbia, I'm Stephen Biddix.
Today, Democratic voters in the Midwest will decide whether to push their party further towards socialism or back to the center, with progressive and moderate candidates facing off in key primaries.
Money out of? Pocket. Money in your? Pocket. Medicare for? All.
In Michigan, far-left candidate Abdul El-Sayed is up against Congresswoman Haley Stevens, a moderate, for the Democratic nomination for the state's open U.S. Senate seat. El-Sayed supports defunding ICE, universal health care, and ending arms sales to Israel. While Stevens is making the case, she's the stronger general election candidate.
The GOP should be worried about running against me. I am a tough-as-nails Democrat.
Stevens is endorsed by the state's popular governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and retiring Senator Gary Peters, whose seat she's trying to win. Whereas El-Sayed is backed by every member of the squad and Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders, although he's tried to distance himself from the socialist label.
Now, I'm not saying like I agree with him on everything, but I mean, based off of like everyone else who's running, I feel like he's the best chance we have at something new.
In Missouri, Democratic Socialist Cori Bush is taking on Congressman Wesley Bell in a high-stakes rematch to represent the St. Louis area. Bush lost her House seat to Bell 2 years ago, a defeat many saw as a rejection of her progressive agenda and anti-Israel views.
I think it's important that we stand with all of our allies in Ukraine, our allies in Israel, our allies in Taiwan, in Western Europe.
More voters weigh in on socialism next week with key primaries in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Connecticut. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
It was supposed to be a contained test on OpenAI models, but the company behind ChatGPT says an ongoing investigation found the test derailed when its AI agents went rogue and gained access to the real internet.
They're extremely intelligent and able to investigate and research how to achieve the task that they're given.
Jeremy Philip Galen is the co-founder of AI cybersecurity company Charlemagne Labs. He says it's important to test AI technology advancements, but they need to be done very carefully. In this particular case, the OpenAI agents hacked AI platform Hugging Face. The agents uncovered leaked usernames and passwords to 4 accounts across multiple online servers and used those credentials to gain access to them, even though OpenAI never told the agents to hack Hugging Face. Basically, instead of just taking the test, it developed a master plan to break out.
This doesn't mean they're operating on their own. It doesn't mean that they're conscious. It just means that they're getting extremely capable. And it's incumbent on the Frontier Labs to tell us, the public and the government, exactly how capable they are.
Several Republican and Democratic lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling for change.
There's a real push for Congress to keep pace with this rapidly accelerating technology.
A House bill dubbed the AI Kill Switch Act would require developers from the most powerful AI systems to shut down their models if they escape human control.
This is the folks who are sounding the alarm from the inside, and I think we have to take that seriously.
Many members of Congress are also calling for oversight hearings to understand exactly what happened during the cyber attack and what can be done to prevent it from happening again. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
McDonald's is planning menu upgrades, improved customer service, and new store updates. Its earnings topped expectations in the recent quarter, and sales rose. Its customers are not coming in as often, but they are spending more per trip. Another oil giant reporting sharply higher earnings. BP's profits more than doubled on higher energy prices. Also, BP wants to sell its biogas business that turns trash into energy. Spotify is now reaching 300 million premium subscribers, and its number of monthly active users rose by 12% in the recent quarter to 777 million, and made more in the recent quarter than a year ago, though Wall Street was expecting even more. Kimberly-Clark's earnings slumped in recent months. It makes Scott and Viva paper towels, Cottonelle toilet paper, and other brands. The company says its China business pulled down its profit because of false allegations on social media in China about the quality of its diapers. And Toyota is making more of its cars in the U.S. It is raising expectations for this year and will buy back stock after its earnings rose. Sales were impacted by the Middle East conflict, but the impact was not as severe as expected. CJ Papa, Fox News.
In the skies over Beechwood, Ohio, residents may see something different. It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's a prescription.
About 3 years ago, we started on this project.
The Cleveland Clinic has partnered with Zipline Drones. Currently, they're testing drone delivery of prescriptions to patients who live within a 5-mile radius of the hospital system's suburban facility.
And we can get those deliveries to the patient within a matter of minutes. Rather than a matter of hours or days.
Pharmacist Matt Soder says patients who live within that delivery radius can register for drone delivery. The prescription package is loaded into a drop box and a tether retrieves it, returning the medication to the drone hovering at 300 feet. From there, the company's geolocation is used to drop the package in a designated area in a patient's yard.
They've got the area mapped to ensure that when we load an address, that delivery is delivered accurately and correctly.
Soder says that's why a small radius is first being tested, measuring for reliability and that the package makes it to the right person. If all continues to go well, he's hoping to reach patients even further away.
With the drone program, we can get that medication to the patient in a much more timely manner, which, if you're a patient waiting on a medication that you need in that moment, can make a real difference for that patient and how they're feeling.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
It felt like an oven, a blast of hot air, and yeah, it's too hot for me.
Across inland sections of the Bay Area Monday, heat relief is mission critical. The mercury coming close to or passing the century mark in many locations.
Summer, it's supposed to be hot. That doesn't help people who don't have air conditioning.
Atmospheric scientist Dr. Allison Bridgers says what makes this week's heat streak different is the lack of a cool down after 3 days. Instead, slightly less heat before a second round of scorching by week's end, due to strengthening troughs and ridges in the upper atmosphere. Bridgers says intense heat sweeping Europe and record rains in the eastern U.S. is prompting some of her colleagues to replace climate change with climate emergency.
There is some thinking, there has been some thinking that the trough ridge pattern, which is really the controlling factor, is more likely to be stuck or slow moving these days compared to back in, say, 1970.
Bridgers says climate change is the culprit. Health experts say everyone is at risk in these types of temperatures, especially the very young, old, and health compromised.
It's dangerous because with the environmental temperatures being higher, it's tougher for our bodies to cool off and self-regulate. We'll start to notice feeling fatigue, they'll feel hot, and they'll start to have symptoms that include dizziness, fatigue, nausea.
In the hottest places, the rush is on to jump into a cool place to beat the heat and avoid problems associated with severe temperatures.
It gives people a place to come cool off and still have a good time.
Because we're cooped up in the house, so we're trying to find options to cool off or be indoors but still staying active.
grow where you're planted. So the weather changes, we have to change and adapt to it.
Okay, so your wife is in a bar, you said she's unresponsive?
This is what he's going to tell you.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir. The only thing they could do was kill him.
The jury and to find the defendant